Welcome, Principal Matters podcast listeners. So excited today for our guest. I am Dr. Jennifer Schwanke, and I'm here talking with Dr. Angela Diggs. Welcome, Dr. Diggs.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super
Yeah,
excited.
we're going to have a great conversation today. So let's tell our listeners who you are. You are an educational consultant. You have a background in special education, school administration, and school psychology. You earned your Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from Kentucky State University, got a master's degree in school psychology from Governor State University, and earned your doctorate in education in counseling psychology from Argosy University. Dr. Diggs is known for her strong work ethic, as well as her personable and down-to-earth leadership style. And in addition to that work as an educational consultant, Dr. Diggs is a real estate agent, a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, and a mom to 3 children. So you are busy.
I am very busy. Yes, yes.
Very busy. And you're
I'm trying to learn how to function in a less busy space these days. Yes,
it is so hard to do.
it
I
is.
was feeling really good this weekend
Yeah.
and feeling like I had everything under control. And then the person who gives my daughter a ride to one of her extracurricular events was unable to
hmm
do it. And it was a house of cards, my friend. Everything fell.
I'm I'm telling you, I totally understand. I have 3 kids that are in everything you can imagine, and it's like a puzzle piece,
It is.
I have to write it out all the time to figure out who's going where, what time's pickup, so I
Right.
totally get it.
It is. It is a puzzle piece, and one thing out of place can make the whole thing fall down. So, we're
Yes.
going to have a little bit of fun with this interview here in a moment. But first, Dr. Diggs, why don't you tell us about yourself beyond the bio that I just read, both professionally and with your life outside of work?
Yes. So I'm currently a director of special services at an elementary school district in the suburbs of outside of Chicago. And so this is my first year in that role. Prior to that, I was a director of special education for 6 years. As you could tell from my bio, I like psychology a little bit. I'm being sarcastic. I was a school psychologist. Before becoming a director of special education and really loved what I did. Was my boss at that time was retiring and encouraged me to apply for her job. I did, and that's how I got that position. So outside of working, I really am trying to gamify this whole thing of beating stress right now and trying to make sure that at the end of each day, did stress win or did I win? So that's like something that I'm a little bit more focused on now, and I'll go into how I got there. But outside of that, I spend time with my children. I really do like to exercise. I like to do activities with my friends and my family, super family oriented. So I do travel to see my family and with my family. So those are things I like to do outside of work. And I love to eat good too. That's a very important
Nice.
thing. So to me,
Nice.
yeah.
You know, to nourish the soul and the mind and the body.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm glad to hear you say that you are in tuned to how to manage the stress. The audience of Principal Matters podcast is principals. And I would say, we get a lot of questions from them. And I would say that is related, that topic of, how do I balance it all? How do I manage it all it's like that 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It's 7 degrees from every question that we get is how
Oh,
can I
for
do
sure.
this? It's
Yes,
a
and it's very hard. I would say that I'm newer in this space because I was in a space prior to this where I was buried by stress and workload, literally buried. Like if you can even, figuratively and visually imagine like a pile of dirt and me as a person being under that dirt being stressed. That was what I was compounded with. And so I did take a year off of working in education, and it was really that point in time when I took a step back from my job, my last job where I resigned from, and I realized that stress had it it caused my skin to just have some challenges with my skin. I had severe headaches, And it was after I left that job and I started to like exercise more that I realized how big of an impact stress had on my life and just really my focus on others and less of myself and how it was impacting me.
Sure. Sure. So that leads me to your hashtags.
Okay.
So when you and I first got connected, I stumbled upon your LinkedIn profile, and you have a bunch of hashtags that I think really do speak to everything you just said. And so what I'd
Mhm.
like to do, I love hashtags, by the way. I used to joke with my friends that if I could just talk in hashtags, that would be not only great fun, I would laugh a
I love
lot, but
it.
right,
I
but
love
it does kind of shorten a thought process. So I would like to say some of the hashtags that you use to identify your profile, and you tell me in a couple sentences why they mean a lot to you. So this is kind of a game you did not sign up for, my friend.
But I love it. And I
Okay.
have to say, by the time people listen to this, when they do go to my LinkedIn profile, I wasn't expecting this game, so I did update my profile is now updated. But I do still love a hashtag, and I'm so down for this game. So
Okay,
yes,
let's play this game. Okay, the first
okay.
hashtag is hashtag education. What does that mean to you?
I feel like education is the gateway to success. Without education, there is no success. Like it really is the gateway to success.
Perfect. Okay, your next one, and I love where this is going to go. Hashtag HBCUS.
Okay. HBCUs, that's historically Black colleges and university. I am a proud, very proud graduate of Kentucky State University, which is an HBCU. And HBCUs they are the cornerstone to excellence. So to me, I have so much pride as a historically Black college graduate. And I think I recently did a LinkedIn post about the importance of hiring HBCU grads. We're extremely resilient. We believe in excellence. We're adaptable. We have such a strong sense of community because of going to an HBCU. So I could talk about that for a very long time because I am very passionate about historically Black colleges and what they do for African Americans.
Excellent. Thank you. And your next hashtag is hashtag women in leadership.
Ooh, yes, this is another one I think I'm passionate about every hashtag,
Right.
but women in leadership, I I think that it is very important for any organization to have women in leadership. There are a couple of men out there that talk about the importance of women in leadership. Just recently, the Super Bowl was yesterday, and Jalen Hurts has an all women management team, and he talks about the importance of leaders, women in leadership. And Trevor Noah talks about the importance of women in leadership. Women, we are. I just can't speak enough about the importance of the detail oriented perspective of a woman, the compassion of a woman, the strong work ethic of a woman, and how important it is to have women as having a seat at the table.
Excellent. Thank you. A topic I've thought a lot about as well. Hashtag leadership coaching.
Leadership coaching. So it's through the work I do through my consultation business, Leading Well, that I have found that I love to coach. I love to support. I love to mentor not only leaders, but because of my background in school psychology, I love to support young and upcoming school psychologists as well. But I think the coaching is so important in leadership because it's so multidimensional, leadership is. And so there are so many things that come at you. And I think the coaching is essential to make sure that you are acknowledging your blind spots and getting support in those areas.
Okay. And that ties to your next hashtag, I believe. Hashtag growth mindset.
Yes. So I think it's so funny because in education, we, when you work with educators, they really don't like change, and when you really get down to it, they really sometimes will push back on change. And so that growth mindset hashtag is really just embodying the importance of having that open mindedness to what that change can lead to, because sometimes we fear that change will mess things up. And no, not necessarily, and so just really trying to promote what growth can lead to.
So I'm assuming that this next hashtag is related to your own growth mindset because it is not, to my principal listeners, a typical conversation piece in this podcast. Hashtag real estate.
Yes. So during my what I like to call my Eat, Pray, Love year, I not only opened up my consultation business, but I also got my real estate license. And real estate has always been something that I've been very interested in. And so that was something that I decided to pursue, completely different from education. I do think as educators, it is nice to find something sometimes just outside of what we do. And so
Mhm.
that's what that is for me. And so, yeah, it's something that I'm just truly interested in. And it is totally different. I will say to all the educators out there, if you're interested in real estate, the exam is so hard. Like I've taken a million exams, and nothing could have prepared me for how hard the real estate exam is. It is very, very hard.
That's
So,
interesting. And,
yeah.
I'm on some social media groups with principals, and there's often
Mhm.
principals who are looking for another thing, just for a little bit of extra income, a little bit of, like you said, a diversion mentally from the work
Yes.
of principals. And real estate comes up every now and then, but I've
Mhm.
been intimidated by that exam too. I don't think that's a
Oh
path I
my
would take
gosh.
because of that thing.
Yeah, yes, I was very, and I see myself because I'm in education, it's like I can pass that,
Right.
very intimidating.
Yeah.
Very, very intimidating. Yes.
Okay. Just three more hashtags. Hashtag mental
Okay.
health. Tell me about that one.
Yes. So as I mentioned before, just being buried in stress, I am very passionate about mental health. I'm very passionate about therapy and individuals taking care of themselves, because I think that when we do the work as being school leadership, being administrators, we often don't pay attention to the importance of our mental health. And you really can't pour from an empty cup. And so it is so important to give some attention to that. We spend so much time serving others, like constantly serving others. And so we really don't pay attention to the importance of serving ourselves and how much of a positive influence that can have on our team if they see us doing that.
Right. So
Mhm.
I think your point about, we are serving others, we're giving so much of ourselves, and
Mhm.
that can absolutely take a toll on our mental health. And probably juxtaposed to that is the hashtag imposter syndrome. I think many times we're giving, and it still doesn't feel like enough. It still doesn't feel like we are competent or legitimate. So tell me a little bit more about why that hashtag speaks to you.
I think that that's important to me personally because I'm a multi hyphenate. I see myself as someone that, I like to do a little bit of everything. I like to do a little bit of creating content on LinkedIn and other platforms. I like to, obviously try real estate. I'm a mom. I like to do a lot of different things. And so I think that when you're in education, what I want people to understand is that it's okay to do other things.
Mhm.
And so I am constantly trying to unbox myself and trying to take myself out of that. I'm a school leader, but yeah, I'm a lot of other things. And so I think the imposter syndrome is just that whole idea of that you can do other things. You can
Mhm.
be a principal and you can be great at tennis, and or
Right.
something else, whatever it is your interest is. And so just really remembering that, don't doubt yourself. And what you're doubting yourself on, someone is intimidated by your potential. So just remembering that you can do multiple things. You can, at any age too, not being intimidated by age, by timing, and not getting in your own head.
Right. Right. So we'll wrap up the hashtag game with this as a woman and as a
Mm,
black woman and as a
mm,
black woman in education and as a
yes.
black woman in educational leadership.
Ooh,
I'm really
yes.
curious about some of the unique challenges that you've had and your the final hashtag here is black women leaders. So how,
Yes.
what unique things do some of our listeners might not even be considering that that cross your path as barriers or challenges, and how have you overcome them?
Mm.
It's a lot.
There there have been a lot of challenges, and so I'll start simple and say the first challenge is being seen and being heard. And I'll just say that I started off in leadership playing myself small because I did see some of my Black women leadership counterparts, if they were too vocal, then there would be a strong opinion of them, and a strong negative opinion, I should say. And so I would say my challenge was being heard and being seen because I felt like that if I was quiet, then that would kind of be a protection for me not to be seen as confrontational. And my counterparts weren't confrontational, but they were seen as that because they may have been vocal about what they saw, how they felt about something, or maybe just their student focused initiative they were trying to push forward or whatever it may be. Um, so I would say that was a big challenge for me for quite some time, is being seen and being heard. And I would say that the next one was and has been, because some of these things are cyclical, they come and go, in terms of just challenges. But I would say the next one has been microaggressions. That has been something that has happened within multiple work environments for me. That's been very difficult. What I would say I have learned is to be more vocal. But I have my way of being vocal. I do feel like my psychology background does help me have certain conversations with people in a respectful way, but to do it to where I'm trying to be direct, but also respect the other person. So I would say that that's the second challenge that I have had. And I would say the third challenge has been psychological safety. I will say that I have worked with administrative teams where I did not trust one person on that team. And I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like I could be vulnerable. I felt like the times that I was vulnerable, people would tell someone else what I said. I didn't feel comfortable speaking up. Um, and that and I also didn't feel protected or supported. And so those have been very difficult things for me. And again, kind of going back to, I know I mentioned before, like I did take a year off of being in a school administrative position. It was really interesting, kind of like the flood of all those things that came to the forefront that I had pushed down a lot. And so those were some of the things that came to the forefront for me about all the things that I had tolerated for a really long time, and wasn't vocal about them, thought that if I was quiet, that I would be protected, or, that people would see my worth and all of that. And none of that really made a difference. So I would say that those have been the challenges.
And now you find yourself deeply trained in psychology and overseeing
Mhm.
student services.
Yes.
And that is I think actually the last question and this question are quite related. Your experiences as a black woman in educational leadership, now overseeing student services, which really in my eyes, someone overseeing student services is overseeing all kinds of student needs, whether
Yes.
they are
Yes.
visible or not,
Yes.
whether they are articulated or not. So, how does that experience and your training as a psychologist, what are some of the unique challenges that you face in your role, and tie that to school principals too, if you could?
Yeah, so I would say some of the challenges are similar, trying to help my fellow administrators understand the importance of students being seen and heard has been a challenge. And I would say it's been a challenge sometimes communicating with principals about inclusivity at times, maybe in the classroom or extracurricular activities. It may be related to a parent concern about inclusivity, when it comes to students with exceptional needs. So that has been something, I mean, that I've been advocating for years, it has typically come to it has typically, I would say, come to a head with principals most of the time around discipline for students that have IEPs. That is where the rubber meets the road oftentimes in terms of my conversations with principals. And so, you know, I would say that if I could give principals advice, I would say do not shortchange the importance of knowing and understanding special education law. I mean, as a principal, you are so marketable if you know special education law. But I would say that majority of the principals I've worked with do not know special education law and the intersection of that with discipline. That's where I have had the most challenges in terms of communicating that with principals because typically things have gotten to such a heightened degree where the student needs to be removed from school because of something that's happened. And quite honestly, if I can be just extremely candid, they don't care that they have an IEP. They did X, Y, and Z. They got to go. And while I understand that, my position is that the child has protections. And so trying to communicate that oftentimes not only to the principal, but the principal's boss too, because both of them are typically on the same page about the fact that the student has to go. And so typically I'm that person trying to explain, yes, I understand, and while I may agree because the offense may be very egregious and impact so many others, but here's what we're up against. And so I have been in due process before. I have been in many mediations. And so I have been at that table, and oftentimes they have not. So they don't understand what all that means, and a lot of times I have had to be the voice for the principal or the superintendent and things like that and do it very delicately. So I would say that that has been a challenge that I really urge principals to gain that special education law knowledge, whether or not you're directly talking to the attorney that represents the school about best practices or you're working collaboratively with your director of special education, you cannot shortchange that knowledge base is so important.
Well, and I think you nailed it with why it's complicated for a principal. And you said I understand, and I do too. You sometimes will have a student make a behavior choice, and then a student, 3 feet away from him make the same behavior choice, and their
Yes.
discipline decision or their discipline outcome might be very different. And for principals, that
Yes.
feels really icky, for lack of a better word.
It does. It does feel icky and for a lot of reasons, right? Not only the offense, but word travels fast. It's not the principal that's telling it, it's not their staff that's telling it, but it gets out whether it's
Right.
the student's parent. And so it almost becomes a PR firestorm for them, which I absolutely understand. And we can't go yelling to the rooftops tops, this student has an IEP, this
Right.
is why, we can't say that. But and so I totally understand that aspect of it. And sometimes it's students that may, you know, be, in cahoots on whatever the discipline infraction is. They're friends. One has an IEP, one doesn't, and it's like,
Right.
oh my
Right.
gosh, and
Right.
they can't receive the same discipline to the same extent, you know, and it gets really, really muddy. And again, I understand their perspective, but you just can't do it the same. And that's the short of it. But just them understanding the long game, because there's a long game for that director of special education or director of special services, you know, in terms of the steps that have to be taken to protect that student, put them in a different placement, possibly they're walking the halls, where, you know, the principal is really upset about that, but you have to give them a paraprofessional or something like that. Like, there's so many different scenarios, and, you know, other students see them in the hall and they're like, "Oh my gosh, they did X, Y, Z, and they're still here," you know, but there are all these layers to it.
Well, and you said it, if it at the very least know the law. I teach school law to aspiring principals, and I think many of them would tell you they absolutely loved the class because they had no idea. As teachers, you wouldn't, right? They had
Yes,
but they did a lot of judging of their principals and the decisions their principal made,
yes,
or their director of special services or whatever. And then they learn the law. These are teachers. And they're like,
yes,
oh, I had no idea. Real. Oh, they had to do that thing. They had to have that meeting or whatever. And so I think you're exactly right. Once you get a handle on the law and the why behind the law, it
yes.
actually falls into place and makes more sense.
Yes, it does. It really does. And so I would just encourage principals to kind of at the forefront really be, you know, make an effort to be on the same page with your coordinator or director of special services. Really make a effort to be on the same page about the classroom environment, whether, you know, there's co-taught classes, discipline, there's so many aspects, and you really just want to make sure that you all are on the same page about things, because there are so many complicated things that are going to come up, and it does help when you all have the same kind of mission and vision for how you feel like things should happen.
So you took my next question literally right out of my mouth, because I was going to say what are some of the ways that principals can upskill and refine their profession? And I think what I heard you say is
Mhm.
know the law, certainly, but know the
Know the
work
law.
of other departments as well. Know, and this is what I wish I could go back and do when I was a principal. I was so grumpy about some of the people in other roles, the student services, the curriculum, et cetera. And I wish I had put my, very narrow vision of what their work was aside and learned what they had to deal with every day. I think it would have made me a better principal.
Yes, I have a friend that jokes with me that says that my job is probably harder than the superintendent because, you know, special services has so many layers to it, you know. And if you're working with different umbrellas of special services, so special education is one thing, 504s is one thing. If you add or working with English language, have an English language department in your, you know, under your that you're overseeing. That's a whole nother. There's so many very intricate things required of all of them, and so it really does require some understanding and just a, you know, you don't have to be super versed in it, but you do have to have some procedural knowledge of what's going on in those areas.
Right. So that leads to our second to last question, which is how do you advise principals and educators and women in education and Black women in education? How can we keep ourselves in a good headspace, happy, healthy, and effective? And we know that you stepped away for a minute and that helped. We know that you have some other things you care about and that helped. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with as they think about staying happy, healthy, and effective?
I would say one of the things that I've found is that you have to build in some type of health and wellness routine into your week. I don't want to say your day because
Mhm.
every day is not that's not obtainable all the time, you know, because we don't always know what we're walking into when we go to work that morning, but into your week. So, for example, I'll say for myself, if if I am able to at the end of my day walk and I try as much as possible to get a certain amount of steps. Once my work day ends, then I will try to do that at the end of the day. And what I have found for myself is that it actually is like shedding off the heaviness of the day. If I can walk, then that works for me. And then some days it's like not eating as many carbs as I would like, because a girl loves carbs. So if I don't eat as many that day, then that's a win. So just really trying to build it into your week and really trying to find those wins. I would say that's one thing I would say is really trying to help yourself get in a good headspace. The other
Excellent.
thing I would say is that you have to pay attention to your body. That was something that I didn't really see the importance of, or I should say, the correlation between what was happening in my body and how my workload was impacting it. And it wasn't until I walked away from my job that I really saw how much it had affected me. And so I
Right.
would say that we have to pay attention to our bodies and our health. If you start to notice that you are having more headaches than usual, then you probably need to go to the doctor and talk to your doctor about that,
Mhm.
and not ignore it, because sometimes we ignore it because we have a project to finish and our boss is waiting on this. We have a deadline to meet. But the truth is that it's okay. Like if it's okay, the work is going to be there. The work does not go away. So just understanding that's something I had to learn, because I have typically been in high performance environments, and so deadlines have been very important. Getting it done on time has been very important. That whole performance thing, and I like to tell people I'm a recovering perfectionist, because that has been, my thing is to just try to be the best at everything I do. And so, but I'm not perfect if I'm not, first of all, perfection isn't real, but I'm not my best if I'm not taking care of myself. So
Right.
just, understanding that.
Well, and I think you were speaking to me right there. I was really listening because I have a procedure I have to have in a few months, and it's you know what, the only thing I can think about is work. I have to how can I step away from work for a minute? How can I do that? And you're right. If your body is saying, "Hey, slow down, time to winter a little bit," then I think you're right. I think you've got to listen to that, and the work will remain. It really will.
It will. I mean, every time I get to work, whatever I didn't finish is still there. Nobody
Still,
did it for me, so it's still there. Like, hey, we're waiting on you. Okay, so it
exactly.
doesn't go anywhere. So that was
Nope.
hard for me to learn, though. I will be honest, because again, I have have been used to working in high performance environments. That was kind of the culture, and you know, I kind of looked at it like, I always wanted to get an A,
Right.
in my mind, that work was A plus. I I had someone tell me recently, Angela, start bringing your C game. Your C game
Right.
is better than your A game. That's what I had someone tell me recently. So I'm working on improving
Right.
bringing my C game. So yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
I'm sure it is more than enough. More than enough. Okay, final question. Is there anything you've seen or learned or heard or led along the way that was particularly transformative to you or pivotal to you?
I think that I think some of the things that I've learned just through leadership is that sometimes leaders having social emotional intelligence is sometimes more important than their competency level in education. And so that might sound a little weird. So I want to explain that. So, what I mean by that is that, you know, I think in the past, right? Sometimes people talk about years ago in education, all we had to do was teach. Now, we have to be aware of all these other things. Yes, we do. We do have to be aware of all those other things. And so we don't only have to be aware of them for students, we also have to be aware of them for our team too. And so being able to read a room is really important nowadays. And it's not to say you don't have to have the competency level, because you do, but that relatability factor is very important. And so people want a leader that can relate to them, that sees them as a person, a human with a life, with real challenges and things like that. Again, I'm not trying to discount the competency, because we need people to know the how to and what to do, but it's very important that people can trust you. They know that you can create a positive work environment. They and not trust you like in a friend, like to be their friend, but trust you in your capacity to be a leader, and you see them as a human that's a real person with feelings and, real organs in our bodies. So
Right.
that has become, I feel like, more important to people, because the work is the work. That's not going anywhere. That's always going to be.
Right.
I say the other thing that I've learned is that if you are a leader and you think you are the smartest person in the room, you need to get out that room, because nobody, no, no, thinking you're this super smart person, that's not cool to people. Like, diversity in the room is important. Trying to be or thinking you are the smartest person in the room, then you are not cut out for leadership, because being a leader, you have to, I always see myself in a leadership capacity. I see myself as a student first, because leadership is a journey. There is in no way, shape, or form have we as leaders arrived. And sometimes people come with that aura. But I think that if you think and are coming with that energy of being the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room, my friend.
Yeah. Get a much bigger room, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, this has been fantastic. Let's say we have a listener who wants to know more about Dr. Angela Diggs. Where do they find you?
Yes, please, 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 if you are looking to connect about leadership, about mentoring others, leadership coaching, or you just want to learn about all these crazy things that I do, you can find me two places typically. One is LinkedIn under Dr. Angela Diggs. I've been posting a lot more content there lately about leadership and other things. But also my website, which is www.leadingwell.online, is also where you can find me.
Excellent. Okay, well, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for playing the hashtag game with me, Dr. Diggs.
Oh my gosh, it was so fun. You have been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, good. Good.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And Principal Matters podcast listeners, you can catch this interview, a lot of encore interviews, and Will and I doing our Monday Matters podcast right here, anywhere that you get your podcasts. So thanks, everyone, and be well.